Hello there guys, welcome back to Younes Talks Football, welcome back to a brand new video. I hope all of you are doing well today. It's a double upload again. We're going to do it. Why? Because we've got pretty hefty news, right, around a certain manager, which we're going to talk about in this video. Later on, we'll get into more of the nitty-gritty, the news, what's happening at Chelsea and elsewhere, but there's also the second Champions League final to take into consideration, like we did after yesterday's game where we spoke about Borussia Dortmund getting to the Champions League final and PSG getting knocked out. You can catch that video right here if you haven't done so already. And later on will be the same story, but this time between Real Madrid and Bayern Munich. TT's Bayern Munich. Who's going to make it to the final? Very interesting. We'll wait and see. Real Madrid are at home. You'd think they'll get the job done. Thomas Tuchel, in the Champions League, might I add, hasn't lost when playing against Real Madrid. Just saying. I think away from home he's not lost anyway. His away form against Real Madrid is phenomenal. It's going to be very interesting, but obviously do Bayern Munich have what it takes as a team to go one-on-one with Real Madrid and get it over the line at the Bernabeu? Remains to be seen. I will address all of that when it's done later tonight, so make sure you're here. Much appreciated. Let's get into the news about Thomas Tuchel. He has spoken, and boy, has this opened a can of worms. I'll be honest, I didn't think we'd get to this point. I had an inkling that maybe TT deep down feels this way, but I didn't think we would be hearing it from the man, and now there's all sorts of questions. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Here's the latest on Thomas Tuchel. He spoke earlier on today, or yesterday, but I think the quotes have come out today. But he spoke to TNT Sports, who are covering the Champions League. Here's what he had to say. Thomas Tuchel and where he will be next season. It's very, very, very unlikely that it's at Bayern. We took this position and there's a pact. We are not doubting. The initiative came from the club and so it is, and I'm fine with it. So we've known this, and this is part of the conversation that we've had recently on here in regards to Bayern Munich looking for a manager. Ten Hag now not in the running. I said this yesterday. Look at the managers that have turned Bayern Munich down. Thomas Tuchel's not sticking around. That pact, as he has said, has already been made, and he's going to be looking elsewhere for a new role. So Thomas Tuchel will be available in the summer, or as of the end of this season. Some might say if Bayern Munich get knocked out tonight, then as of tonight he's available, basically. But if he makes it to the final, then he's got another Champions League final to play. It would be his third Champions League final if he were to get past Real Madrid tonight. We will see what happens, and I'll talk about that later on tonight, as I've already said. But he also said more. He was asked about a Premier League return. Here's what he had to say. Thomas Tuchel on a Premier League return. I'd rather not answer, but it is no secret that I loved it at Chelsea, I loved it in England, and I loved it in the Premier League for sure. It was a very, very special time, and I remember it very well. Interesting. I find this interesting, and I'm going to clarify the situation because I do think this is coming more from his side. Chelsea's side remains to be seen, and I will talk about that later. But he's spoken about a Premier League return. I think he knows what he's doing by saying, I loved it at Chelsea, specifically. We know he's linked with Man United. Everyone knows that, and I'm going to get to that in a sec. But he's mentioning not just the Premier League, not just England, but mentioning Chelsea. Why? He didn't have to. He could have easily said, I was in the Premier League and I loved it there. I loved England. It was great, and leave it at that. He made sure to mention first, I loved it at Chelsea. Right? I think psychologically he knows what he's doing. I think there's a reason. Florian Plettenberg has now come out and spoken after this, the aftermath. What has he said? Let's get into it. When I heard Thomas Tuchel mention this, honestly, I thought exactly what Florian Plettenberg said and what I'm about to show you. Here it is. News, Tuchel. He is tempted to get Manchester United back on track should Erik ten Hag leave this summer, but there are still no concrete discussions. Taking over Manchester United with its tradition, quality and power is a big goal of Tuchel. However, he also does not rule out a return to Chelsea because he does not see his mission there as finished yet. It's not a secret that I loved it at FC Chelsea. I loved the Premier League for sure, he says at TNT Sports. So that's what Thomas Tuchel has said. I think he wants the job back. Now, I think he would take Man United. I think as a professional, I don't think he's strictly looking at Chelsea waiting for the phone to ring. He's got to see what's available. But Man United, we know, are probably more than likely going to sack Erik ten Hag. Man United will be available. I do want to say, shout out Johnny Minerals. He mentioned this ages ago, right? Saying, Tuchel, Man United are going to be all over it. And now we're starting to get to it. Yeah, Man United are going to be all over him. If we let them. Because now, like I've said, Thomas Tuchel, deep down, and as Florian Plettenberger said, would happily come back to Chelsea if the offer was made. If there was a reconciliation, if things were discussed and you know, bridges were amended and not, you know, I mean, they've been burnt, maybe new bridges are made, you know, who knows? If there's some sort of understanding between the club and Thomas Tuchel and they get everything out on the table in the open, maybe they can sort the differences out. Maybe they sort things out. Maybe at that point, Thomas Tuchel goes, yeah, I'll absolutely come back, right? But is that going to happen? Now we talk about Chelsea. Are Chelsea going to do that? Well, Alex Goldberg, he mentioned on here, Tuchel to Chelsea, his info on it. I think he's an advocate of seeing Thomas Tuchel back at Chelsea, but in this clip he mentions that there's no chance that Chelsea backtrack and Chelsea reconcile with Thomas Tuchel. And I just want to say, if that's the case, Chelsea, Younes, Egbali, Clearlake, Feliciano, Todd Bowley, the whole shebang, all of you, do the right thing. Just do the right thing. I know some people are worried. I say some, I think it's the few, that are worried that if we were to sack Pochettino, we go and get Thomas Tuchel back, that it's all going to, you know, burn and crash to the ground. I'd like to say that I think as of right now, we've not been beautiful, have we? Thomas Tuchel, I think, brings two things. I think he brings a resilience. You know what you're getting at the bare minimum. What's the bare minimum? Just look at his history. Look at his league finishes. Look at his trophies. And people are going to criticize his league finishes. Oh, he can't do it in the league. Oh, funnily enough, his lowest league position was 6th. And that was when we got taken over by the UK government. And that was his lowest, right? After leaving Mainz. When he was at Mainz, I think he got 7th. But that was 2013, 2014. I think it was 10 years ago. Since that, Borussia Dortmund, PSG, Chelsea, Bayern Munich, minimum 4th and above. Minimum 4th and above. Would you take that right now? Abso-flippin-lutely. I would. Abso-flippin-lutely. I would take 4th right now. 100%. Champions League, thank you very much. The one thing that you bet, you know for fact, is that he would know exactly how to get this team back into the top 4. Now, after that is a conversation that we can have when it were to come to that, right? Look at his Champions League record. Quarter-final, semi-final, final. Nothing less. Just like how Chelsea used to operate. I want to get back to these levels. And I want certainty. And I feel Thomas Tuchel does that, one. And what's two? I think he absolutely gets the fan base back on board with this entire football club. I really do. And it would be testament to the ownership to actually own up and admit, you know what? The best thing for us moving forward is to get Thomas Tuchel back in. Everyone would be on board. All the skeptics, myself included, I think everyone would look and go, okay, you know what? Cool. Now we've got something to ride with. Now we've got something to get behind properly. Let's do this. And I think everyone would come together at that point. Thomas Tuchel is a smart tactician. People are going to worry about his man management. I think in terms of young players and not having transfer responsibility, which is funnily enough, something that I think he doesn't actually want. He's admitted this before, but he was given that extra power, let's say, or extra decision making, and then he gets criticised for poor talent ID, when he's come out and said that he just wants to coach, which is, I think, what the club want in a manager, right? They want a head coach and they don't want them having much power at the transfer table, right? Well, beautiful. Match made in heaven then. Funnily enough, even Jose Mourinho came out not long ago talking about how he just wants to coach and doesn't want to talk about transfers and extra responsibility. Maybe he's just getting too old for it. But, you know, what would be the problem then? Because that seems to be Chelsea's model. We don't want to give managers a real say in terms of transfers, but we want them to coach. Well, great. So I think it would absolutely bring most people, back on board with the direction of the football club and everyone onto the same page, and we can go into attack next season as one. So it's, funnily enough, I think the decision is with Chelsea instead of Thomas Tuchel, because I think many people would think that, even if Chelsea wanted to, Thomas Tuchel won't go back. I think he's made it clear he would. I think he's made it clear. And if that's not going to happen and Man United come knocking on the door, he would absolutely take the Man United job too. It's in our hands. But we'll see what happens with Pochettino first, because we've got a season to finish now, you know, talking about Europa League and 6th place and all of that. Let's see what happens. To wrap up, this little piece of news that I want to mention, let me know your thoughts down below in relation to Thomas Tuchel, by the way. And where do you think he will end up? I have to be honest. My gut feeling is that Man United will end up with him. That's how I think it's going to pan out. But Chelsea have the power to change that if they really want to. So Chelsea, the move is yours. The choice is yours. As Russell Peters used to say, do the right thing. Be a man. For those OG ones that understand, you understand. If you know, you know. Let's get into this last piece of news before we wrap up. Ajax are stepping up their move for former Chelsea manager Graham Potter in a bid to ward off Manchester United, who are expected to place Potter high on a short list of candidates to replace Erik ten Hag. Listen, that's from Matt Law as well, by the way. If Man United are looking to replace Erik ten Hag with either Gareth Southgate or Graham Potter, then what are they doing? This is where, like I've mentioned, enter Thomas Tuchel. If he's obviously going to be available, he's without question the best option on the table for Manchester United out of all the names I've just mentioned. Graham Potter, Ajax, would be a very good move for them, I feel. I feel that job, that profile, what the expectation is, their model suits Graham Potter to a T. Right? Development. Trophies in Holland are basically a given, kind of. But Ajax have always been an academy school, basically. They're like a conveyor belt of youth products that come out of their academy and get shipped off. And, you know, Graham Potter, in a team like Ajax, where it's not very, you know, hell-bent, full of pressure and whatnot, it's very calm, I feel like would suit Graham Potter. A calm, composed, cool environment where there's not much pressure and there's loads of players to develop. That's it. That's the job. I think it would suit him to a T. So Ajax, good role for Graham Potter. Let's see what happens there. But let me know your thoughts down below. And let me know your thoughts on Thomas Tuchel. Where do you think it will end up? And what do you think is going to happen tonight? Now, as I've said, there will be a video number 2 later on tonight, and we will see what happens. But like I've said, to wrap up, I just want to say Chelsea have an opportunity to absolutely do the right thing here. And for me, that would be, if it's going to be available, get Thomas Tuchel back. I know some people are saying that they're worried about how it ended. Well, how did it end? It ended because the ownership weren't on the same page with this geezer who knows a thing or two. Some people are worried about his tactics, about having to play Cole Palmer at right wing back. Come on, he's not going to do that. Let's be honest. Come on. And he's not going to stick with only one system forever, is he? You know, he's not going to do that. But what he is he's flexible at times. He can be rigid, but he's flexible at times. He knows where to tweak. He's very smart at reading the opposition. He's very smart in terms of his tactical nuances, his knowledge, the ability to apply certain things that you just wouldn't see coming from anywhere, right? He can do all of this. I feel like he would be a very, very, very good certainty with results, a level, and hand-in-hand development. His man management is the one where I feel like most people will be worried. Honestly, I'd like to think he's learned a lesson by now in terms of that. And I feel like he would have a good relationship with players as long as they're just doing what he's asking of them. It's as simple as that. So let me know your thoughts down below. I think it'd be great for the football club, and I think it'd bring us back to where we belong. So let me know your thoughts down below. Much appreciated. Let's see what happens tonight, and I will see you then. Video number 2, Real Madrid Bayern Munich semi-final, done and dusted. I'll see you then. In a bit, people. See you lot later. Take care, and peace.